Yeah, well, like any other day, we got up at 4 in the morning. So there were 15, 16 people traveling in the bus.
I was tired. I was driving home, 65-mile commute one way, and it was pre-dawn darkness.
It was about 6:10 or 6 o'clock. We just left the hotel on a snowy day.
And, I was probably 3/4 of my way home, and I'd say a little over maybe 100 yards up in front of me on the road, there was tail lights.
All of a sudden, I saw the lights from a large truck were getting closer.
And then there was headlights coming towards me. And then I didn't think much of it, and all of a sudden the tail lights turned to headlights, turned to tail lights, and I went, that car just spun out.
My colleague, the driver, yelled. He vulgarly said to hell with it, it already hit us. And he turned the wheel to the right. I grabbed onto the seat and felt it pulled us. And I managed to see the driver hit the truck's edge on the front side of the bus and took the whole side off as if it were a curtain. I did this. I thought we started spinning, and when the bus fell on the side of the road that we stopped, I yelled at my nephew, "Son, you okay?" He said, "Yes, Uncle, I'm good." Then let's get off because the bus could explode. Well, that day I was sitting next to my Uncle Baltasar, and when I felt the impact and woke up, it had already happened. In an instant, it had happened.
Didn't realize it was a bus or what it was or at that point, and as I got closer, the headlights I realized were stopped, and there was only one headlight now, so I started slowing down, realized the road was covered in debris. The bus is right there down in the ditch, and people were walking up from the bus to the road, and I'm like, is everybody okay? Is everybody okay? And as I'm walking towards these people, they're just walking right past me, and I'm like, and it didn't click at first, and I could hear them speaking, and then I'm like, they're not speaking English, okay.
I woke up and fractured my knee. But in that instant, I didn't feel it because I was in shock. I got off, and afterwards, I couldn't walk. When that happened, there was a colleague on top of me. My first reaction was to get him off and get out.
Does anybody speak English? And one man said, yes, I speak English. I said, okay, how many of you are on the bus? It was like 18 or 16 or something like that. And I said, well, there's only 9 or 10 of you on the side of the road. Where's the rest of them? He said, well, there's 2 under the bus. I said, well, I thought there was one laying right there in the snow.
I walked and saw a colleague under the truck's tire. Another colleague was full of blood. He was barely breathing. But he didn't take more than a minute to stop. It was painful.
It wasn't safe to do mouth-to-mouth compressions, but I attempted chest compressions. The problem is in the deep snow, he was just going deeper and deeper, so I just wanted to get him up at least to the road. And then I could still hear someone on the bus. And that's when I was talking to the guy, and I said, how many more are there? And they gave me the number, and I'm trying to do a head count. I'm like, how many do you have up there, plus 1, plus 2 under the bus? And when I went to the side of the bus, I could see a set of feet, and there was no room under the bus. So at that point, it was just triage.
Then the other guys, 3 guys were still in their seats. They died there. In fact, we were seeing what we could do, but we couldn't do anything because some died instantly and one colleague was pinned to the seats. Other colleagues went in to get him out, but couldn't because he was pinned. It was sad to see him there and not be able to do anything.
And I came in through the back of the bus. It's leaning heavy to the left, and there was a man on the left that was under the seats, and he was deceased. The next one forward, he looked like he was just unconscious because the seat in front of him was pressed back into him, and he looked like he was just unconscious in the seat, so I tried shaking him to wake him. But I realized he was missing part of his pelvis and his right leg. And that's when the one EMT came out of the front of the bus, and then there was seats, debris, and then there was a deceased man, and there was one underneath that deceased man that was still vocally making noises. And I said, we need to move this out of the way. We're just gonna toss him out into the snow. And he was a younger EMT, and you could tell he didn't have much experience because he just looked like deer in the headlights. And I'm like, we need to move this one out of the way so we can get to the person underneath. And he's like, I just need a neck brace, and he ran off the bus. And I'm like, oh my God. The one that was on the bottom, he had serious head trauma, but he was still vocally making noises. And at that point, they had got a neck brace on him, and they were getting him onto a backboard from there, and they were bringing him out of the front of the bus. And at that point, there was more people there than I was just getting in the way.
I managed to look at the truck that hit us and saw the driver was on the wheel, so I thought he was also dead. But barely anything happened to him.
I drove home. Actually, as soon as I left, I called my wife and woke her up, and I broke down at that point. I literally just broke down and said, you know, the adrenaline wears off, and you're just like, wow, I just need to decompress.
This accident is something I'll never forget, because from that moment, the day took its toll.